There is a lot of information on the internet about how to buy a house in general, but something that I don't see covered nearly as often, which is surprising, is what if you're buying a house, but you're also moving to a completely different city? There is a lot more that is going to go into your home buying purchase if you are also adding relocation on top of that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. 4 easy steps to relocate to a completely new city and make it as simplistic as if you were just buying a house across the street. So let's get into it. Step number 1 is figuring out where are you going. This may seem really obvious, but you would be surprised how often people call and they actually have no idea specifically where it is that they're wanting to go. They just know that they want to make a change. So step number 1 is really going to be you taking the time to do that research and due diligence and figure out where is it that you're wanting to go. What's important to you in relocating? Are you wanting to go somewhere with a different climate? Are you wanting to go somewhere with cheaper housing? Are you wanting to go somewhere with better taxes? What is your motivation for moving and what areas fit that criteria? That is step number 1. Now, you may have in your mind, I would like to move to Tennessee in general. That is a great start, but that's still pretty broad. Believe it or not, Tennessee is a huge state. Tons of different cities and all sorts of areas that you could go with picking just the one state. So you still really need to do some further research to narrow down specific areas, cities, towns, etc. that are going to be your focus for your relocation journey. So something that is extremely important if you're able at all is to take a couple of exploratory trips to the different areas that appeal to you based on the research that you've done online. You can get some great information on the internet. You can check out house pictures on Zillow. You can read about top restaurants, taxes, prices, all the statistical stuff, but what you can't do on the internet is really get a good feel for that area and what it would actually be like to live there. Looking at pictures of a living room on Zillow is not going to tell you what it's going to be like to shop at that local grocery store, to see what kind of parks they have, to see what kind of schools and recreational activities they have, to see if they have a Whole Foods down the street if that's important to you. That's the kind of stuff that you want to check out on these exploratory trips to help you narrow down your area of choice. Something else to note on the exploratory trips is if you're that early in the process, I really don't necessarily recommend looking at houses on that trip outside of maybe going to an open house. And let me elaborate on that a little bit and tell you why. For one thing, if you're looking at a house and your projection for your timeline is in a year or two, obviously that specific house is not going to be available at that time. And as I mentioned before, you're really focusing on figuring out what area you would enjoy as part of your daily lifestyle at this point, more than you would be figuring out a specific home or a specific layout, a specific neighborhood. That's not really the focus of the early exploratory trip. The focus is to figure out what city appeals to me, what area would I be comfortable living in, what has the resources and amenities that I'm looking at, and then we narrow down the houses later on in the journey when you've really honed in on what area appeals to you and it's going to be your top choice. Step number 2 is going to be connecting with a local realtor. This is going to be so vital in your relocation journey, and it's really important that you take some time to talk with different people to figure out who's going to be the best fit for you. Especially if you're making a huge cross-country move, it is very likely that your real estate agent is going to be your boots on the ground for several different parts of your relocation experience and journey. So you really want to make sure that you find someone who, A, you connect with, that you're going to be comfortable speaking to really frequently throughout the process, be someone who really is familiar with the area and make sure you can make sure that they are guiding you correctly, and see someone who you just click with because they're going to be probably helping you coordinate inspectors. They're going to be helping you maybe do virtual tours if you're not here in the area. They are going to be so important for the entire process. So I recommend really taking the time to interview a few people, figuring out who's the right fit for you, and making sure that you put that connection at the forefront once you've selected your city. They're also going to be really vital in step 3, which is helping connect you to all of their local vendors, including their mortgage loan originator partners, because the next step is going to be figuring out how are you buying the house. So step number 3 is financing and figuring out how are you paying for this house. Especially if you already own a home in the city that you're currently living in. We need to figure out, do you need to sell that before you're able to purchase something here? Or could that be something you turn around and sell later after you're already settled? Do you need to still look for a job, or have you been offered a job position and that's part of what's making you want to move? Are you able to work remotely and use that income to be able to relocate and then get settled and maybe look for something later? All the answers to those questions are really going to determine what your timeline looks like and figure out the exact strategic steps for those big puzzle pieces. And those are things that you're going to want to work really closely with the realtor that you've chosen in your desired area, the lender partner that they've connected you with, to make sure that we're on the right page there. And also maybe you have a realtor in the area that you live in currently if you do have something that you need to sell. So all those people are going to need to be really connected and communicate well to make sure we're setting you up for success, to put all of those pieces in the right order. Okay, so now that we've taken care of some of those back-end pieces, we've figured out the exact order in which you need to do things, we've connected you with all the people you need to be connected with, you know exactly what price point and what area you're shopping for. Now we're getting into the more regular stuff of shopping for homes. But if you're relocating from somewhere far, far away, you may or may not be able to make it down here to look at the houses. So let's talk about a couple different options. Obviously, it's really ideal if you can come see the homes in person. We want you to be able to see every single part of the house that you're making a big investment in, but sometimes that's simply not possible with whatever your work schedule is. Maybe you live too far away, maybe it's too expensive to fly. There could be any number of reasons why you may not be able to be out here super frequently. So a couple of different options to consider. One would be making just 1 or 2 longer time frame trips and packing in as much as possible during those trips with the intention that this is my shopping time frame and this is when we're planning to pick something. So maybe that means coming out for a weekend or taking a couple of vacation days where you come out for 2 to 3 days in a row. We look at as many things as possible, narrow down your top choices, revisit those, and pick one from that trip. Or if that's not possible to do that, then maybe what we do instead is set up virtual tours. That has become a really popular option over the last few years. And while, again, I would prefer that you see it in person, that's just not always possible. And so we've luckily got the technology to be able to do things virtually now. A few different options on the virtual tours. You can either set up a time where we are meeting live on the video camera. We can either do a FaceTime or a Zoom, walk through the house, show you every single corner of everything that there is to see about the house, and really get a good feel for as close to in person as you could get. One thing to consider is occasionally when we're doing those live virtual tours, the service may be a little bit spotty for you to see everything. So plan B would be to go in and I schedule a time to view the home. I go in and do an extremely thorough virtual tour, look at every corner of every room, give you out loud commentary about what it is that we're looking at, and send that to you for you to go back and look at your leisure. Sometimes when that's the scenario and we're not able to do a live video because the service is a little bit too spotty, I'll try to call you right before or right after to make sure that the video covered all of your questions. But those are going to be realistically your main options whenever you're looking at things and you're not able to come physically view them, or you're only able to make 1 or 2 trips, and maybe we fill some of those gaps with the virtual showings. This may also end up being the case throughout the remainder of the process, depending on where you're coming from and what your timeline looks like as far as getting settled. Maybe your inspections end up being virtual, and maybe your closing even ends up being virtual. All those things thankfully are possible with the technology that we have. So how we set that up really just depends on what you're comfortable with and what ends up working best for your schedule. I hope this really quick breakdown was helpful and gave you a little bit of a better idea of what it would be like to relocate to the Chattanooga area or any area. All of these are going to be applicable regardless of where you're going. But if you have any questions about relocating to Chattanooga specifically, I would love to be your go-to guide for that. My name is Whitney Proctor and I'm a realtor with Real Broker here in the greater Chattanooga and Cleveland, Tennessee area. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of my great real estate and local content. Thanks for watching.